My brothers and sisters, I speak to you today not merely as a leader, but as a witness to the truths the world refuses to see. I speak of something so powerful, so sacred, and so misunderstood that it shakes the hearts of kings and emperors alike. I speak of Islam, and I speak of the principles that have guided me, that have guided our people, and that have guided countless generations who have walked this earth seeking dignity, seeking truth, seeking justice. When I spoke of Islam, the world listened. But there were ears that trembled, ears that did not wish to hear, ears belonging to those whose ambitions are fueled not by faith, but by a desire to control, to dominate, to bend the sacred into tools for their own power. Among them, a name rises, Mohammed bin Salman. Yes, the crown prince. Sitting in his palace, surrounded by influence and wealth, listening to words he never imagined he would hear from an African soldier, a man who speaks plainly, without hesitation, without fear. What I said was profound yet simple. I reminded the world that Islam is not a weapon, and it never was meant to be. It is not a tool to bend people to your will, nor is it a mask to hide the ambitions of the powerful. It is not a mechanism to silence dissent, to suppress voices, or to justify oppression under the guise of piety. True Islam is not measured by the opulence of your palace, the influence you hold over the weak, or the strength of your armies. It is measured by how you act when no one is watching, by how you treat those who cannot fight back, by how you serve justice when the world expects compromise. Islam, true Islam, is a faith of justice, a faith that does not bow to intimidation or corruption. It is a faith that challenges those who use their power to dominate instead of serve, that protects the vulnerable, that lifts the oppressed. It is a faith that calls on leaders to act with integrity, to lead with honesty, to place the welfare of the people above personal gain. It demands that those who claim to guide others have the courage to confront wrongdoing, even when the world whispers that silence is safer than truth, even when it is convenient to look the other way. Islam is also a faith of compassion. It teaches that our duty is not only to God but to humanity, to our brothers and sisters, to the orphan, the stranger, the widow, and the destitute. Compassion is not merely a sentiment. It is action. It is the mercy we extend, the decisions we make, the laws we uphold, and the protection we provide to those who have no shield of their own. Compassion is the light that exposes hypocrisy, that pierces through the illusions of grandeur, that reminds even the most powerful that their status and wealth cannot substitute for moral courage and empathy. And Islam demands courage, not cowardice. Courage to stand when the path is dangerous. Courage to speak when the mighty are wrong. Courage to act when inaction would be easier. It demands that leaders resist the temptation to bend truth for convenience. Resist the arrogance that whispers, "I am above accountability." Resist the desire to manipulate religion for personal gain. True courage, the courage Islam teaches, is not performative. It is not the posturing of a ruler addressing his court. It is resolute. It is steadfast. It is willing to challenge the powerful, to confront the uncomfortable truth, and to risk personal safety for the sake of righteousness and justice. And when I said this, I did not whisper. I did not speak in riddles, nor did I wrap my words in ambiguity to protect myself from the wrath of the powerful. I declared it publicly, openly, and without apology. I declared it in front of those who believed they could manipulate faith for personal ambition. I declared it in a world where many had grown accustomed to leaders who used religion as a sword against the innocent and a shield for oppression. I declared it boldly because justice cannot be deferred, because truth cannot be quieted, because the people deserve a voice that speaks firmly and plainly even when it shakes the foundations of power. And in that declaration, I reminded every listener that integrity is not optional, that faith is not negotiable, and that righteousness cannot be bought or silenced. Islam, in its essence, belongs to the people. It is the compass that guides actions, the moral force that cannot be hijacked by fear, wealth, or ambition, the standard by which leaders are measured. To deny this truth is to betray not only the people, but the very principles that faith demands. I spoke of the dignity of every human being, and I said that no crown, no throne, no oil riches can justify the oppression of our brothers and sisters in the name of religion. I said that the sacred teachings of Islam demand accountability, demand fairness, Demand that the rulers themselves be judged not by their wealth, but by the integrity of their actions. And in those words, I could see the reaction ripple across continents. I could see the fury. I could see the discomfort. Mohammed bin Salman, in his opulent hall surrounded by marble, gold, and the trappings of unimaginable wealth, could not contain himself. The echoes of my words reached him across seas, across deserts, across borders, and they unsettled him in ways no security or wealth ever could. He could not accept that a young African leader, someone he likely viewed as peripheral, someone he assumed would bow to global power dynamics, someone he believed would remain silent in the face of injustice, dared to confront the very misuse of religion he had relied upon to consolidate control and influence. He could not accept that the truth spoken firmly and clearly could strike deeper than the carefully choreographed displays of wealth, deeper than the drums of his PR campaigns, deeper than the armies that stand ready at his command. My words were not cloaked in flattery or diplomacy. They were direct, they were unvarnished. And in that clarity, they carried a force that no throne, no palace, no entourage could shield him from. He could not comprehend that faith, when wielded with principle and honesty, resonates with the hearts of believers in a way that mere spectacle never can. The influence of his advisors, the weight of his armies, the grandeur of his palaces, none of these could compete with the simple power of truth. Because truth does not fear scrutiny. Truth does not bend. Truth does not need validation from titles or wealth. And when the faithful recognize it, when the people hear it, it becomes a force that even kings cannot suppress. He could feel the tremor of accountability that comes from being confronted by someone who refuses to be intimidated. The young African leader, he realized, was not a man to be seduced by power or swayed by fear. I spoke of integrity, of justice, of the responsibilities that faith demands from those in positions of authority. I reminded him, whether he liked it or not, that no palace excuses oppression, no crown sanctifies arrogance, and no army absolves the betrayal of conscience. The fury he felt was not merely personal. It was existential, for in those words lay a conviction he could not crush, a principle he could not buy, a challenge he could not command. In that moment, the grandeur of his empire seemed fragile, the opulence of his halls seemed hollow, and the illusions of control that surrounded him felt as empty as the echo of my voice ringing across borders. And perhaps what troubled him most was the realization that my words had power where his wealth could not reach. Power over hearts, over minds, over the conscience of those who seek truth. For faith, when spoken of honestly, is stronger than armies. Integrity, when acted upon, is heavier than gold. Justice, when demanded courageously, cannot be contained by walls or guarded by soldiers. Mohammed bin Salman, in his fury, had a choice: to listen, to reflect, to act with the integrity his faith demands, or to recoil, to ignore, to let his anger blind him. History, however, favors those who face truth, not those who attempt to suppress it. And in that moment, the young African leader, unwavering, principled, unafraid, stood as a reminder that wealth without righteousness is empty and power without accountability is fragile. I told him, and I tell the world again, that Islam is not what is televised. Islam is not the political theater designed to impress outsiders or the luxurious displays of wealth. Islam is lived in the hearts of the people. Islam is compassion for the vulnerable, fairness in governance, justice in the courts, and courage to confront tyranny wherever it hides. And when I said this, I was speaking not as a critic from afar, but as someone who has walked among the people, shared their burdens, seen their struggles, and heard their prayers echo in the silence of despair. I reminded the world that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that leadership is responsibility. Leadership is not self-interest. Leadership is not luxury. Leadership is service. And when I spoke of these principles, I was not targeting a single individual. I was not choosing sides. I was speaking truth to power, a power that believes it can silence conscience with influence and wealth, a power that thinks it can manipulate faith for control. I could see the reaction already, aides trembling, advisors whispering as the words reached the ears of those who were accustomed to submission, who were accustomed to obedience, who were accustomed to bending Islam to serve ambitions rather than people. I did not step back. I did not flinch. I stood firm, knowing that the truth has a way of traveling stronger than any decree, faster than any army, and more enduring than any crown. I said, Islam teaches us to protect the weak, not to exploit them. Islam teaches us to speak against injustice, not to hide it. Islam teaches us to be honest in our dealings, not to manipulate them. And when I said these things, I was not merely making a statement. I was issuing a challenge. A challenge to those who have corrupted the faith for wealth. A challenge to those who have misrepresented it. A challenge to those who believe that their power makes them beyond accountability. Mohammed bin Salman, I know you heard me. I know you felt that sharp edge of truth cutting through the illusions of comfort that surround you. I know your fury, because the truth does not fear palaces. The truth does not bow. The truth does not recognize oil wealth as a shield against conscience. And I spoke to you not to provoke, but because someone must. Someone must remind the world that religion is pure, that faith is sacred, and that no one, no matter how powerful, has the right to twist it for personal gain. I said that our brothers and sisters are watching across the Middle East, across North Africa, across the world. They are watching how leaders use religion as a cloak, as a shield, as a weapon. I said that the people are awakening, that they are seeing the hypocrisy, that they are yearning for leaders who embody the principles they preach. And in that moment, I could feel the weight of history pressing against my shoulders, a reminder that speaking truth is never without risk, but that remaining silent is the greater crime. I reminded him, and I remind all of you, that Islam calls for justice, even when it is inconvenient, even when it threatens the comfortable, even when it shakes the very foundations of power. Islam calls for accountability, even when kings sit on golden thrones and believe themselves untouchable. Islam calls for courage, even when the world whispers that silence is safer. And these are not just words. These are actions. These are responsibilities. These are mandates that define the very essence of faith. I spoke of humility, the humility that leaders must possess, the humility that recognizes wealth is fleeting, that power is temporary, that influence fades, but the righteousness of one's actions endures forever. I said that no kingdom, no palace, no army can substitute for integrity. I said that if you lead without justice, you lead into darkness. And no amount of oil, no amount of gold, no amount of spectacle can ever light that path again. I could see the reactions forming, not just in palaces, but across the corridors of global power. There is discomfort when someone speaks plainly. There is alarm when someone speaks with conviction. There is fear when the people recognize they no longer need to be silent, that the faith they cherish can no longer be used as a weapon against them. And this is the moment I live for. Not for glory, not for recognition, but for the awakening of conscience. I spoke of responsibility, not the kind that is convenient, not the kind that is only performed for show, but the profound, unshakable responsibility owed not just to God, but to the people themselves. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is not a privilege. Leadership is a sacred trust. And with that trust comes an accountability that cannot be evaded, cannot be hidden behind wealth, cannot be silenced by armies or guarded by palaces. I reminded the world that a leader's greatest sin is betrayal, not betrayal of an individual, but betrayal of everything that gives leadership its meaning. Betrayal of the principles of faith, betrayal of the sacred trust of the people, betrayal of history itself.